Welcome into another episode of Texas Sports Unfiltered, and today our preview of the Texas opponents for the 2023 season continues, and we are taking our talents to Tuscaloosa to talk about the Alabama Crimson Tide. Joining us today, the host of Tuscaloosa's longest-running sports radio show, Ryan Fowler, is with me today. What's going on, Ryan? Thanks for the time, man.
Hey, you're welcome, Brad. Thank you. And I hope you guys are excited about coming to Tuscaloosa, get some barbecue, not brisket, but barbecue. I know you guys do a little different than we do, but we're excited to have you guys. We have a lot of respect for what you guys are going to bring, hopefully, to the SEC. And I guess this will be a good test and a barometer. I'm sure there's probably revenge on Texas folks' mind. And we're excited. I'm sure you guys are as well. I'm looking forward to chatting with you for a few minutes.
What kind of barbecue is Tuscaloosa known for? I didn't realize you guys were such a big barbecue town.
Well, we're all about the pork. Is really it's you can get brisket, but it's more of you ever heard of Dreamland? Dreamland is a barbecue Hall of Fame. They were inducted in the Barbecue Hall of Fame in Memphis, Tennessee, which kind of is where we look at where originates barbecue. So you got Dreamland. So they've been around since 1958. So they've a long-standing tradition. You've got another place called Archibald's, but it's more of pork-based. It's not brisket-based, but and really there's no like determined seasoning. You might have some that's vinegar-based. You may have a tomato-based. Not a lot of mustard bases. I love a mustard barbecue sauce like in Kansas City. But I listen, I respect all barbecue. I mean, when you get to my size, I'm at 225 pounds. I don't discriminate against barbecue. Okay. I mean, if it's brisket, if it's pork, but we do ribs pretty good here. And I'm sure that a lot of people will be looking for Dreamland, and there's a couple of locations. I would tell everybody for the first time, if you're coming to Tuscaloosa, go to the original location. It's just an experience. You go in one of these places and it's kind of a little shady, which is perfect.
Yep.
You got to go to the original location. And I didn't make it out to Austin last year, but I'd love to get out. And one of these days, I'm sure I'll make it out there and have what's that number famous? Is it what's the famous barbecue out in Austin that everybody talks about?
Franklin is the most famous one. That's the one that's got like the 3 or 4 hour wait pretty much every day.
Wow. Now Dreamland's not going to be that long by no means, but they got plenty of seating, so you should be okay. But you never know. It depends on how many private jets you guys fly in here. But I hear they're already making plans for the arrival of what you guys are going to bring to Tuscaloosa, and hopefully you guys won't soak up too many of those tickets, and that Bryant-Denny Stadium will look kind of orange a little bit.
Looking forward to it. And like you, I don't discriminate with barbecue. I was born in Kansas City and grew up in Texas, so I'm all about it, man.
Okay, well, I love Jack Stack up in Kansas City.
Great spot.
I don't know. Yeah, so we actually order barbecue sauce from them, so I love their mustard-based barbecue sauce. See, you get me on food and football, and I'm a happy guy. I'm a happy guy.
Oh, man, I love it. I love it. So, Ryan, the preseason AP poll comes out last week. And it's always weird for me not seeing Alabama at number 1. And then I don't see them at number 2. And I don't see them at number 3. Bama, number 4, which is their lowest preseason ranking since 2009. Now, unfortunately, we as Texas fans know how that season ended up. But your thoughts on the relatively low, by Alabama standards, ranking to begin this season?
Well, okay. And if this audio makes it back to Tuscaloosa or makes it in the Alabama fans, they might be a little bit upset at this. But here's the thing. There's a lot of questions around this football team. You lose Bryce Young. And I think for Alabama, and I think probably for a lot of your voters, they look at Alabama and they say, okay, you couldn't get the job done with Bryce Young, so you're not going to be that good at that quarterback spot. I mean, he was the first number 1 overall pick in Alabama history. When you look at Bryce Young, how do you fix that? Okay, so you're not going to have a Bryce Young. If you couldn't win it with him, and listen, in Tuscaloosa, success is defined by winning a national title. If not, it's a failure. So I think a lot of people are looking at Alabama going, okay, you're without Bryce Young, but I think Alabama is going to look different. I think they're going to feel different. I think they're going to get back to a physical brand of football. I know at some point you're going to ask me who the quarterback is going to be, and I'm not trying to bypass your question. I just don't know. And I've always had strong opinions on the quarterback. I would say the young man Jalen Milroe from Katy, Texas, which we're always proud to get Texans into the University of Alabama. We've kind of made a living in Louisiana and Texas is really supplementing these recruiting classes over the year. Obviously, Jalen Hurts from right there in Houston as well. But if you look at Jalen Milroe, I would think that he would be the guy. But there's still some things to be worked out for him as a quarterback. When the lights come on, how big is that stage, and can he handle it? Because being a quarterback at the University of Alabama, just like it is there in Austin, it's a challenge. You get a lot of pressure for a young man, 18, 19, 20 years old. But there's a lot of questions. Left tackle's another one. Defense, I think, is going to be pretty solid. Wide receivers is a major concern. So as I get frustrated with some of the votes, and Alabama fans gripe on me all the time, but I understand why people are doubting this Alabama football team. And this team could win a national title, or this team could lose multiple games in the season, which really hasn't happened other than last year in the Nick Saban era.
Yeah. All right. I won't ask you again about the quarterback, but I will ask you about the new offensive coordinator. Ryan, I did sports radio in Houston for the last couple of years. They can't stand Bill O'Brien down there. And I think a lot of Bama fans are pretty excited that Bill O'Brien is gone. Out goes B.O.B. In comes Tommy Rees. Your thoughts?
Get out of here, B.O.B. Get out of here. Get out of here.
Yeah. Your thoughts on the change at OC for your Crimson Tide?
Well, I know that there's a lot of excitement, but if it's 3rd and inches and you get up under a shotgun formation and you don't believe in your rushing attack, see, they would have beat Tennessee. And if they would have beat Tennessee, they may have been able to make it to Atlanta. And if you get there, who knows? I mean, the year prior, they didn't think Alabama could beat Georgia. They took them to the woodshed and made it in the college football playoffs. So you look back at Bill O'Brien, I like him. I've got a friend of mine that played for him. He loves him. Matter of fact, he played there in Houston, A.J. McCarron. And when he talks about B.O.B., he talks about creativity. But I think Bryce Young made him lazy. I think that when you've got a Bryce Young, you can freelance a lot. You could say, Bryce, go win us a football game. And he did that on multiple occasions. Without Bryce Young, you probably don't win the game in Austin. There's games that you could point to that you would have had a lot more losses. So when you look at Bill O'Brien, I respect him as an offensive mind, but I think Tommy Rees is going to be a better fit. I just think he matches up with who they are going to be, and it would be scary because Bill O'Brien at times, and I'm sure Houston would probably agree with this, he was stubborn. Oh, yeah. He was very, very, very stubborn and not willing to flex any. I think Tommy Rees is a better fit with what Alabama's trying to be. I'm not sure they'll be able to get there this year, but I think that he was brought in to reestablish a physical level of domination on that line of scrimmage. And I think Alabama's going to take some steps in that direction.
Yeah, you brought up trying to be more power running and putting a little bit more emphasis on running the football in general. You also talked about going into Texas and getting some big-time players. Jase McClellan, next in line. Obviously, it's not just Bryce Young gone from that offense. It's Jahmyr Gibbs, another first-round pick in the NFL draft who was such a difference maker in the game in Austin and really all season long for you guys last year. Who's going to replace Jahmyr Gibbs? Is it Jase McClellan? What's that run game going to look like this season?
Deep. It's probably the best running back. Top to bottom. There may be more players out there that you could find superstars. You could say, well, this is the best running back. And really, if you go to Ole Miss or if you go to Arkansas, Sanders, or you could find better backs in the game of college football. But I don't think you're going to find a better, deeper running back room that's in Tuscaloosa. And this is something in this transfer portal era that we live in. It gives us a lot of things to talk about, but it also gives us something that we can read. And so when I think about Alabama, this running back room is deep. And when I look back at the transfer portal, they've had 5 running backs. Jamarian Miller is another guy that you want to keep an eye on. They've also got Justice Haynes. They've got Roydell Williams. They've got Richard Young. They've got plenty of backs. I think it's the deepest running back room in the country. And I think that's to tell. I thought maybe one guy would get in the transfer portal, but if all of those guys stayed, that tells me that they believe that they have a role on this team. And so they all stayed here. So when you look at Jace McClellan, he's the leader in that room. But at the end of the season, I'm not sure he's going to be the leading rusher.
Wow. Yeah. When I think Alabama, especially in the Nick Saban era, I think of great running backs, and it just feels like it doesn't matter who y'all lose year in and year out. There's somebody next in line who's going to step up and make things happen. So, yeah, I don't doubt anything about Bama having maybe the best running back room in the country. Ryan, it's not just offense, right? Defense having to replace, I think, 6 starters from last year's team. A top 5 pick, Will Anderson with the Houston Texans right now. Dallas Turner's still there. He's awesome. But what is that Alabama defensive front going to look like? How do you expect the pass rush to look like this season?
Well, the edge guys are good. Don't forget about and you'll know the name by the end of the season. Chris Braswell did not get a lot of playing time because you had Will Anderson and Dallas Turner. Dallas Turner is probably going to be an All-American, but I think Chris Braswell is probably going to be an all-conference type player. I think those guys will get out to the quarterbacks. They're deep at outside linebacker. Now, defensive line, Jaheim Otis is probably going to be able to give you some pressure in the middle, but I wouldn't be afraid to bump him to the outside of that 3-4 and maybe play one of those end spots. So Tim Keenan's another guy that's been given a lot of attention. Justin Abogbie had some injuries last year. Looks like he's ready to go. Defensive line is only as good as the depth. I think they're decent. I don't think it's like where they were 2016, where they had 9, 10, 11 defensive linemen, it seemed like at times, where they just rotated, the Jonathan Allens, the Deron Paynes, and all these studs through there. They're probably not going to be that, but I think they've probably got 6 guys that they can rotate. And I think that unit needs something to prove. When we got accustomed to Bo Davis here in Tuscaloosa, we love Bo. Bo's the best defensive line coach in the country, period. So there's still a lot to prove in that defensive front, but pressure should come from the outside. And I think the other part that you can combine that, because these 2 units go hand in hand, you're going to have 2 lockdown corners. You should be very, very good. Kool-Aid McKinstry, another All-American candidate. Terry Arnold played a lot of good football. You should be strong in your defensive back group, which should go and complement that edge pressure that they're able to create on the quarterback.
Yeah, you brought up Bo Davis. Obviously, he came over with Steve Sarkisian a couple of years ago. Sark did a lot of poaching from Nick Saban's staff when he made the move to Austin a couple of years back. Any bad blood? I mean, it didn't look like it when these 2 teams got together in Austin last year, but is there any sort of resentment from Nick Saban towards Steve Sarkisian, not only for leaving, but also for taking a lot of the coaching staff with him?
No, I don't think so. I think Coach Saban has got used to replacing coaches. No, I think Coach Saban, if you ask him, I think he respects Sark. And listen, Sark did some great stuff here in Tuscaloosa. You go back to 2016, the national title game, kind of getting forced into that responsibility of being a play caller after Lane Kiffin was let go, 7-8 days before the national title. People forget about him not running the football, or they do remember him not running the football. Bo Scarborough gets hurt. But Alabama fans, you look back at Sark and they appreciate. Listen, I'm telling you, I'd love to have Bo Davis in Tuscaloosa, and I love his mentor, which is Coach Pete Jenkins. You should get him on one of these days. He's an 85-year-old veteran. He's the world-renowned defensive line specialist. He mentored Bo Davis. He brought him up. He groomed him. So we love Bo Davis. A.J. Milway, another guy that played here, was on the GA, I think, here, maybe as an analyst, and so we're quarterback coach, Jeff Banks. So it's going to be important to them to come to Tuscaloosa and for their team to play well. And I think that's something that maybe we don't focus enough on, is how Sark knows that Nick Saban defense. But the one thing that you need to keep in mind, it will be Nick Saban's defense, but Kevin Steele is going to call it a lot different. He's going to get off the bus blitzing. So just kind of keep that in mind. Yeah, it'll be Nick Saban's defense. Last year, Pete Golding called it very similar, I thought, to how Nick Saban would call it. But I think this year, it's going to be a little bit different. I think when you think about, Sark and you think about Kevin Steele, that's a little matchup that I'm going to be kind of curious to see because when Sark was here and Alabama went to Auburn, which where Kevin Steele was coaching, at times they struggled. So, you always watch these little matchups, and I think it's kind of fun to see this chess match within the game.
I do too. Ryan, I'll let you out of here on this one, and really do appreciate the time. And hopefully
welcome.
we get the chance to talk during game week for Texas and Alabama, maybe for a more in-depth preview of that game itself. But
we may know more. We may know more because that Middle Tennessee State, we're still learning. I'm not trying to play coach talk here with you. There's just a lot of unknowns. I think we'll know a lot more after that Middle Tennessee State game.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Last thing, sort of a season outlook for Alabama, right? You broke down the coaching, you broke down the personnel, but what are your expectations for the Crimson Tide this season? Do they make it back to the playoff? Are they legit national championship contenders? It's weird to ever use Alabama and rebuild in the same sentence, but is this a little bit of a rebuilding year? What do you think happens with this bunch in 2023?
There's just a lot of variance. It could go one way or the other, and I'm not trying to. My audience has been telling me I'm a fence straddler all season. Okay, they've been all over me. We did this show today. Matter of fact, we did the predictions today, where we asked people to submit their predictions, and I probably got more non-national title predictions than I've ever got in the Nick Saban era. So I look at this team. It all depends on the quarterback spot. You've got to be able to throw the football enough that they respect you on the defensive side of the ball. Can the quarterback, whoever that is, whether it's Jalen Milroe, whether it's Ty Simpson, whoever, can you get those guys out of the box? And we were talking with Blake Brockemeyer, two-time All-American at UT. We love him here. He's got a son here. He's got a son at TCU. Had two sons here last year. We love to hear him, break down the offensive line. This team could go a couple of different directions, but it's all about that quarterback. Can you make the other team respect your arm? If they do that, this team could get back to bloodying people's nose in the trenches, whipping somebody's tail, in where the game is won and lost. They should have a really solid offensive lineman. If I was a betting guy, I would never bet against Nick Saban. I've just watched him when this doubt creeps in. And listen, I think 5 of the championships that he's won, it's been with a first-year starter in Tuscaloosa. Let that sink in. Sometimes the better quarterbacks don't have success in Tuscaloosa. So if you calculate all of that, I would say it's at the minimum a college football playoff appearance. But listen, I'm not just because I'm trying to, stroke the ego of Texas, because you guys have already got a large one. I don't have to add too much to that. But that game will be big. That will be huge when if Texas, think about a win. Alabama wins it. Maybe it's a launching pad for a great season. If Texas comes in here and beats Alabama, we could be talking about the dynasty over and what it would be a launching pad to get Texas into the college football playoff and kind of that statement, hey, we belong in the Southeastern Conference. So this game is going to be huge. The tickets are going to be off the chart. When you talk about value. So I know I'm straddling the fence. I could see it going a couple different ways. I could see it with a couple of losses, or I could see Alabama being a very dominant football team. I know I'm supposed to issue a prediction, and I just don't feel comfortable one way or the other because of where this team is currently.
That's all right. We'll let you off the hook. That was a great answer, even though you didn't answer the question. That's all right. It's all right.
Sorry. I just, it's not that I'm bypassing. I just don't know. It's just, there's a lot of doubt, and probably more doubt than I've ever seen in Tuscaloosa in the Nick Saban era. There's some questions on this football team.
That's definitely what it feels like from the outside, too. Y'all follow Ryan on Twitter at Ryan C. Fowler, and you make sure you listen to the longest running sports talk show in Tuscaloosa on the Game 100.9 for more great content. Ryan, you're the man. Really appreciate your time today, and hopefully we get the chance to catch up pretty soon.
Hey, and we get a few Texas people calling this offseason. They like to call and chatter a little bit, so we welcome those calls, and we'll welcome those into our conversation. We talk college football year-round, 4 hours a day, 52 weeks out of the year. Thank you again for giving me this opportunity. Hope you have a great evening.
You too, Ryan. We'll keep sending more Texas fans your way, too. All right? You'll get more of those calls coming hopefully soon. You're the man. Thanks, Ryan.